What's up, good people? Christian Allaire here from Christian Allaire Yoga. Coming to you today to talk about a couple of things. I get lots of questions, or I've had numerous questions about beginners. And beginners will come out of the woodwork and they'll say, you know, your class is a little too difficult, or I'm scared to practice. And, you know, do you offer a beginner's class? And I don't offer a beginner's class. My classes are what I consider to be an all levels class. So to expand on that a little bit, I view beginner's classes as a bit of a crutch. I don't necessarily like them because it's who to judge who's a beginner and who's advanced is just not easily discernible. However, I do understand the question, and people just don't understand the moves, they don't understand the languaging, and it's just kind of an unknown, and so there's a bit of a fear that creeps up. Also, injury is a topic that will come to mind because many people, when they find their way into a yoga class, the reason they find their way into the yoga class is because there's some kind of disaster going on in their life. Either mental stress, lots of difficulty, or a physical injury, some kind of ailment, or they just start to feel the effects of aging. And they're like, hey, time to get after it, but hey, I don't want to injure myself. Totally get it. So I wanted to preface this by saying that I have experience with injuries and yoga. I am at present 52 years old, and 7 months ago had a total hip replacement surgery on my left side. So I practiced 3, maybe 4 years with pain in my hip, and worked through it and felt the pain, had no idea that it was advanced osteoarthritis, and the question is whether my continued practice actually hindered or exacerbated the injury, or it helped. I got to be honest, I'm not even really sure how to answer that question. I don't know whether it facilitated and made it worse. I will say, though, in context of simply isolating the hip only and not bringing into the other elements of yoga, the other physical strengthening, pliability, the ability to mentally become more resilient, well, that's all part of the mix. So you just can't isolate it into the hip. So I'm going to go over a couple of things. And remember, folks at home, don't be a hater over my glasses, right? I love these glasses, my readers. I'm going to tell you about circling back to the issue about beginner's classes. And what looks like a beginner's class and what looks like an advanced class is not always easily understood. I will tell you this, that every injury I've ever had, every muscle ache or pain has always, every single time, been in a slow class in a non-heated environment. And from the outside looking in, say a rookie looking in, they're like, oh, there's a class I can deal with. It's slow and it's not blazing hot in there. Well, I'm just here to tell you my experience has been that every time I do those kind of classes, I come out just not feeling great. Also, when it comes to injury, the science is not clear. What is an improper practice? And unfortunately, in yoga and injury and the science behind it, every time there's a study on yoga and injuries, the study is done by non-yogis, meaning they're medical professionals who are conducting the study, but they have no concept of yoga. Do they ask the question, was it a heated class or a non-heated class? What style was it? What was your physical condition before you went in? Where were you mentally, physically, intuitionally, and spiritually before you went in? These are all relevant questions. And so therefore, the jury on whether yogasana is dangerous or is prone to more injury is not really solid, at least in my brain. Okay, so how do you begin is the question for beginners, or what to look out for as you begin to practice yoga. One thing that I know it's pretty straightforward is that when you practice yoga, if you are really tired going into the practice, or even in the middle of the practice you start to bonk, you've just increased your threshold for, or the risk of injury. So becoming very tired is something that you need to start to realize, hey, I'm starting to get into that edge, that exhaustion, and now you're becoming at risk. So I'm going to read from a book here that will help drive home this point. One observes, for example, that many students lose their balance when coming out of Trikonasana, triangle pose, than when going into it, most likely for reasons of mental and physical fatigue. This premature relaxation of the body's alignment while still in a compromising position can lead to injury. So this is about being aware of what is happening in your body. This is one of the things, it's the dichotomy of the practice. Yoga trains you to become super and hyper aware of your circumstances. And so for newer practitioners, you haven't built up that awareness. I'll tell you another thing that can lead to injury is becoming way too ambitious in your practice. I call people who come into yoga that are not of the right mindset, I call them dabblers. And they come into yoga, they get the cool clothes, and they meet a new community, and it's great. And they start to learn some of the moves, and they become way, way too ambitious, meaning before they ever even learn a little bit of a foundation on how to move the body, how to breathe correctly, or even understand the environment, they're already popping up in a handstand. They want to go there. These are what I call dabblers, because what's going to happen is they're going to learn the moves, they're going to dabble around in handstand or some of these more advanced arm balance practices, and then they're going to hit the plateau, the dreaded plateau. Our ability to live in this world successfully is correlated to how you can sustain yourself in the plateau. You hit that plateau and it just gets boring. And so for the dabbler, what happens is they say, I guess this practice wasn't for me. They made rapid progress, and then they stop making progress, and next thing you know, they're at the CrossFit gym swinging around kettlebells with their new clothes, their new community, and they're making rapid progress, and then suddenly they hit the plateau. And 5-6 months later, all of a sudden they're like, I don't think this whole CrossFit thing was my jam. And next thing you know, they're into like rock climbing or whatever, and the cycle goes on. So my cautionary tale here is that start out with your foundation, be as methodical as you can in your practice, and only start to go into more advanced poses when you even understand what an advanced pose is. In regards to what an advanced pose is, or what it would mean to be too ambitious, I'm going to take a reading right out of the Yoga Sutras. In Sutra 2.46, in Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, there is something called sthira sukha asanam. And it translates as, asana is perfect firmness of body, steadiness of intelligence, and benevolence of spirit. In this, the word sthira may be translated as strength, alertness, firmness, or control. And the word sukham is translated as ease, comfort, and openness. It is the balance between effort and ease, sthira sukha asanam. That is maybe your major focal point when you're first starting out in your yoga practice. And as I related earlier in this video, we can take the example of Trikonasana. You're much more balanced going into the pose, so there's sthira sukha asanam present coming in, but coming out as the body fatigues, as the mind fatigues, as you become more distracted, you've lost sthira sukha asanam, so you keep it present constantly. Moving on to the next issue that I would caution people about in terms of injury, especially for newer practitioners, is staying too long in the pose. And again, I'm going to reference a book and I'm going to do a little bit of reading for you. It is good and proper to encourage students, this is coming from a teacher's perspective, it is good and proper to encourage students to stay a little longer in a yoga pose than they are inclined to do otherwise. In most students, there is a rapid weakening of the nervous system as the posture is held and rapidly escalating psychological need to come out of the posture. I think for people who have been practicing for a while, we've experienced that numerous times. By keeping oneself in the posture just a little beyond the need to come out, one strengthens the neural circuits that drive the muscular holding, and this is a good thing. By keeping oneself in the posture a little beyond the need to come out, your neural circuits are becoming stronger, and that drives the muscle holding the posture erect and develops the willpower necessary to progress in the practice. On the other hand, as the medical literature shows, one can stay far too long in the posture to one's detriment. Ideally, one should work with effort, but not to the point of struggle, experiencing discomfort but not pain. Discomfort, but not pain. A great way to lead your practice. So beginners, discomfort, not pain. The last thing I'm going to mention in terms of things to watch out for that many yogis will experience, and also this is germane to the beginner as well, the sciatic nerve. Okay, the sciatic nerve, the structure of the sciatic nerve is it comes out as a bundle. Out of the back of the head into the vertebra, and it's a bundle of 5 nerves, and it spreads out down through the body, and then into the legs. It peels off and goes into both legs, and down to the knees, to the backs of the knees, and it signals. Obviously, it's a nerve, so it's a neurological injury. If it starts to hurt, it's a neurological issue, a pinching, a cutting off, things of this nature. And again, I'm going to reference the book here to talk about what piriformis syndrome is. The sciatic nerve runs vertically, and it usually passes between the piriformis muscle and the pelvic bone. But in 15% of the people, the sciatic nerve actually passes through the piriformis muscle. Piriformis muscle runs horizontal in your butt cheek, very, very deep into the glute. And this sciatic nerve, it's a very large nerve, either runs over or under the nerve, and in that unlucky 15%, it runs straight through that muscle. And that muscle is short and strong. And so as you begin to practice, if you're a person that sits all day, right, you have sciatic pressures. So people who stand all day as well and don't move their body also can have sciatic pressure. And so this is a real issue. I don't even know if you would call it an injury necessarily, because an injury kind of implies like all of a sudden you're like, ah. This is kind of a chronic long-term thing. Piriformis syndrome results when the piriformis muscle is tight and compresses the sciatic nerve, especially in the unlucky 15%. Any sport that tightens the hamstrings and buttock muscles can result in piriformis syndrome. People who stand habitually, as I just mentioned, with the front thighs rotating externally. So if you see people with Charlie Chaplin feet who walk in this way, boy, they got some serious sciatic issues coming down the pike. This is why you hear in yoga a lot. Toes face 12 o'clock. Press through all 4 corner points of your feet. So you're learning to rotate the feet in the way that they were designed in order to prevent piriformis syndrome from taking place. So if you do have piriformis syndrome, there are yoga poses. Yoga therapy balls are tremendous for relief of piriformis syndrome. What you're trying to do is you're trying to train that piriformis muscle to relax. It's just like constantly tight and compressed and contracted, and it just is not getting the proper signals to release. And so I think that's all I'm going to mention for today. So for beginners, please don't be shy about getting into an all levels class. Don't be shy about doing one of my videos. Simply modify. Don't feel the need to do the entire thing. If you see that I'm going 100% into the pose, maybe come out and do 75% of the pose. I liken it to jumping into a rushing river. You got to put on your life jacket. You're going to get buffeted around. You're going to get knocked around a little bit. But at some point, you're going to get into the flow of the river. And if you start to become overwhelmed, well, you move to the bank of the river into that nice, cool eddy, which we call child's pose. You calm down, you regather, you regroup, and then you get back into the flow. Once again, my name is Christian Allaire, and I hope you enjoyed this video and checking into my YouTube channel. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button popping up over my left shoulder, and I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you so much.